Okay, for this project, we're going to create a new canvas that's 1080 pixels by 1350 pixels at a resolution of 72 dots per inch. And then what we're going to do is go to File, and we're going to go to Place Embedded, and we're going to navigate to the asset for our project, which I have saved to my September folder. Go ahead and hit Place, and I'm going to resize the asset so that it fits the width of the canvas, like so. But I want to make sure that I can see the rocks down here at the bottom. Next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this. So I'm going to press Command J twice, and I'm going to rasterize the top two layers. So rasterize layer and rasterize layer. The bottom layer I'm using just as a reference so I can compare and see what I did by the end of this project. Now on my second layer, notice I've turned off the top layer. I'm going to take my lasso tool and I'm going to make a selection around the perimeter of the subject of the photo. And I want to have, I don't know, 5 to 10 pixels of padding around the subject. So I don't want to get close to the edge. I want to have a little bit of that buffer. Now that I have rasterized this, I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Edit Content Aware Fill. It's going to pop open this new window that you'll see is going to process for a second right here. And it's going to delete this and sort of seamlessly blend it in with the background. One thing I want to do is have the output layer, or the output settings, be to the current layer. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now you're going to see that this layer, it's gotten rid of the guy. And I will go ahead and hit yes. Oops, no, I'm not. I'm going to undo that. I hit no if you get that message. I'm going to deselect now, and what I'm going to do is take my top layer, turn that back on, and I'm going to use the object selection tool. So I'm going to make a rectangle around this gentleman here. I'm going to let it process. You'll see it selects a pretty good selection around the edge of this fella once it's done thinking. As I'm recording, I'm asking a lot of this computer to do this processing, but you'll see, oh, it was a complete and utter failure because I had the wrong layer selected. So let me go ahead and make sure I select the correct layer. I'll make another rectangular selection right here. There we go. Now I get around this guy. And I'm going to do the same thing, holding the Shift key, and it's going to get the rocks as well. So now I have everything that I want selected right here, and I'm going to add a mask. Now I'm going to double click on the mask, and I will go to Enter Selected Mask. I could also go to Select Selected Mask, and I'm going to refine the edges just a little bit. I'm going to change my view mode to on black. I'm going to increase my opacity to 100 just so I can see the difference a little bit better. I'm going to use a Refine Edge Brush tool right here. I'm going to paint out the inside. Photoshop's going to do a pretty good job of cleaning this up. Right here, I've sort of missed some of his feet, so I'm going to grab this tool, which is the brush tool. I'm going to use the additive mode in order to add in the part that I got erased by accident. And then if I zoom in on the hair a little bit right here, I'm going to add that in as well, just to make sure that I don't inadvertently cut out parts that I don't want to cut out. And I'll hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is convert this into a smart object. If I turn off all of the layers except that top one, you'll see what I am left with. And now what I'm going to do is go to Window, and I'm going to go to Timeline. And the timeline is going to give me an option to create a video timeline, which I want to do. And I'm going to resize my window like so I can see a little bit more clearly. I'm going to keep this bottom layer on, and I'm going to convert this to a smart object. And the reason that I'm doing that is so that I have right in here these transform controls. Now with the transform controls, I'm going to take this top layer, I'm going to click that little timer button. You'll see it adds in a little keyframe right here. I'm going to press Command T to resize this. I want to make this just a little bit bigger than it otherwise would be, like so. All right, now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take, one moment, I'm going to take this layer right here, and I'm going to hit the transform key like so. And I just want to set it like so. Right, now I'm going to move all the way to the end of the 5 seconds right here. I'm going to click on my man layer again, hit the transform key, press Command T, and I want to resize this back to its original width. All right, down here at the bottom like so. I'll commit that change, and what we should see is from here, you get the sort of zoom out effect. And then on the bottom layer right here, this little waterfall at the end, we're going to add in another keyframe And right here, we're going to zoom in. So press Command T. I'm going to zoom in like so. And I'm also going to have it sort of fall down. So it's going to sort of look like the waterfall is zooming in while falling down. And you get this interesting effect like so. We call this sort of a 2.5D perspective. You can play around with the amount at which you're zooming in and zooming out, and that'll sort of impact how it looks. Now, in order to export this, there's two ways we can do this. We can go to File, we go to Export Render Video. If you want to make this an MP4, which could be uploaded to Instagram, for example, then that is the option that you would choose. You're going to get this initializing video window that pops up. You have to give it a name, so I'm going to call this Waterfall, and I'm going to save it to, for now, I'm just going to save it to my desktop. I'll hit Choose, and then I'll hit Render, and then it will spit out an MP4. You'll see it'll take a few moments to process, and the other option would be to go to File, Export, and then we're going to save for web legacy. Now you can see that it takes a little bit of time to process, especially if you're also recording a screencast of the same project. But the other option would be to save it as an animated GIF file. One thing that we are going to want to be cognizant of is the image file size, or the GIF file size. So what we can do is we can go to Set Timeline Frame Rate, and instead of having 30 frames per second, we can knock it down to like 15 or even 12. And so you'll see it'll be nearly a third of the size, because there'll be a third as many images. And so again, if we go right here, we can see that that's what it's going to render out as. We go to File. Oops, sorry. We go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. And it's going to pop open this GIF saving dialog box that will give you a number of different options to play around with. One has to do with how many colors you actually want to include in the file. By default, it's considered 256. For this, you can see that at that size, it's 43.46 megabytes, so it's like a huge file. So what you might choose to do is change this to 128. We'll see what the impact is that it has right here. You might also, for a GIF, change the image size. So you can see that knocked down 10 megabytes. It's about a quarter less of the size. I maybe would resize this down to, let's choose like 400. It's 400 by 500. And we'll click out of here. We'll see that reprocess. Basically, decreasing the image size is going to decrease the amount of data that it takes to make up the video. And so you can see now it's 6.179. It's a little bit smaller, but if I go ahead and hit save, that's a manageable file size. I'll save this to the desktop as well. I'm going to call it waterfall.gif and save. And that is the project.